I'm conflicted when it comes to the weapon balance in Modern Warfare. Obviously, the game has an ease of use problem. A problem that has been in essentially every FPS game. Whether it's the M16A3 in Battlefield 3, the R101C in Titanfall, the Bal-27 in Advanced Warfare, it doesn't matter. People will gravitate towards them. The ACRs in the Modern Warfare series, for instance, the MSMC in Black Ops 2, the Vector in Call of Duty Ghosts, the MTAR in Call of Duty Ghosts, most of the weapons in Call of Duty Ghosts, honestly, to be fair.
To be fair.
Well, to be fair.
And that's what we're going to start talking about here. Every video game is going to have a hierarchy. Doesn't matter how balanced you think it is, doesn't matter what your experience has been, if there is an FPS game out there, it has a hierarchy. Whether it be sword, gun, character, or ability, something is going to be gravitated to by most of the community that's playing the game. However large the player base, however balanced the game, a hierarchy is going to form. Any of your favorite games could get a billion patches and something would still feel a bit better than something else and be picked more often. Now, of course, humans are complicated, and we have complex preferences, so don't worry, even if there's a very overpowered assault rifle in a Call of Duty game, you're still going to find people that are not into it. They don't really enjoy using it, and they will use something else, learn it, master it, get better with it, and probably kick your ass even if you're using the best gun in the game. Thank God for that, because if that didn't happen, then every match I would be in, I would just be killed by an M4 or an MP5 in Modern Warfare. So that is, thank God, right? But how do you combat an ease of use problem? Some people say buff every underpowered weapon. Whatever the least used weapons are, buff them. And I'm usually behind that. In fact, I would say I am behind that. But I had a kind of a radical idea when it came to Modern Warfare tonight while I was playing. Because if you guys caught my live stream tonight, and thank you for the donations and the views on my live streams, guys. I know I'm not the best Call of Duty player in the world, but the fact that like 50 of you will come out and watch me play means a hell of a lot. But here's the thing, right? While I was streaming, I started to really get annoyed with the fact, because I'm trying to get like the crossbow unlocked, so I have like the red dot on an EBR-14, and I'm trying to get kills with it, and I was doing pretty well. Even at my worst, I was still, I think, scraping together little bits and pieces of what somebody could call decent gameplay. I was making it work, but I felt like I was having to work harder than everyone else. A Kar 98 just needs to land a single shot in my chest, an M4 can pepper me with 800 rounds per minute, an M13 can pepper me with 900 rounds per minute, an MP5 can two-shot me in the head up close, and the MP7 can hose me with 40 rounds with just about zero recoil. So a reasonable position that I would probably have is some of those guns need nerfs, and definitely all of the weaker underused guns need buffs, or slight alterations. Like for instance, with the EBR-14, I think they should either speed up the fire rate or lower the recoil. Not both, just one of the other. Same with the FAMAS. I think the FAMAS should either fire its bursts faster or should kick less when doing so. Basically make it faster or more consistent. But what if instead of buffing the underpowered guns and nerfing some of the overpowered guns, why not sort of rework the weapons to all be a little bit difficult to use? Basically, what if Modern Warfare's weapons just, on average, kicked more, shook more, had more side-to-side and vertical recoil, encouraging people to tap fire and take their time? But with that, increase the lethality in some more subtle ways, speed up bullet velocity across the board, and bullet penetration. Obviously, reworking all of the weapons, something would still rise to the top and people would use it, and even in a brand new meta, again, something is going to rise up. But if Infinity Ward could remove the crutch that is the low recoil, high DPS assault rifle or SMG, or LMG, that dominates the play space, then we might have ourselves a damn good game. And now, I don't think that's crazy out of line. Just looking at the way that the pistols kick in this game and how much they buck in your character's hands, I think that's a little bit dramatic. But then I kind of started thinking, what if every gun was sort of like that? And then the only guns that would really stay the same are the ones that require shot pacing and timing. Of course, in the case of a complete overhaul to weapon design and balance in Modern Warfare, yeah, there would have to be some changes even to weapons like the EBR or the FAMAS so that they didn't become, the top dog suddenly, while everything else becomes a little bit harder to use. But I think increasing the lethality of the rounds when it comes to penetration and velocity, and maybe also increased damage to limbs, because limb damage being heavily reduced, I think creates very inconsistent gunfights, especially when people are jumping and sliding and drop shotting. I think that kind of becomes hard to deal with. So yeah, you could increase the damage to limbs, make the bullets faster, make them penetrate cover farther and do more damage on the other side of it, even without FMJ. But we could put a stop to this somebody using an M4 with a compensator and a commando grip and a red dot sight and holding the trigger on me with 50 rounds, basically not having to think. Same with the MP5 or the Kilo, or in more mid-range engagements, the MP7. Because any gun that requires you to manage recoil or to, pace your shots, like with the FAL or the Odin, you are just not gonna gravitate towards them. Why would you? Okay, obviously your preference might fit them, you might enjoy them. I mean, the FAL was probably one of my favorite guns in this game, but I'm kind of putting a feeler out here. What do you guys think about basically a Call of Duty game that casts out that old assault rifle that dominates at every range trope that's been in every COD game? So that if you get killed by an M4 at mid-range, you think, okay, that guy controlled his recoil, instead of watching the kill cam and the gun barely moving at all while the dot just tracks you. How would you feel about a Call of Duty game that removes that low recoil, high DPS meta that's been dominating so many games in the genre for years? Weapons like the Odin AK would be relatively the same, with some minor changes here and there to correct for the new meta, but guns like the M4 and Kilo would basically be entirely new weapons. So instead of having a couple assault rifles and SMGs and maybe a sniper rifle or two that dominate most engagements, why not have a system where everything's kind of a challenge to use, making players a little bit less versatile so that they have to specialize their kits for various combat roles? Because that's not what we're seeing right now. It's not what we've really seen in most FPS games. In Ground War, for instance, in Modern Warfare, if I was to go play it with an M4, I could spec an M4 to take a close quarters point. I could spec my gun so that I could go into that point and just mow everybody down in close quarters, and then still take people out at about 150 meters pretty confidently with the same exact rifle. Like really, 50 round magazine, Corvus marksman barrel, Merc foregrip, and a muzzle brake, there you go, perfect. Throw a sight or a stipple grip on that and you're good to go. So if instead of that, the M4 had more recoil, it shook more in your hands, and there's no gun that allows you to feasibly take out people in close quarters and then easily take out at a distance. And then mounting would be a more useful mechanic that's also more easily countered because, what did I say before, all ammo types would have better bullet penetration and damage through cover. So mounting is more viable because your guns kick and shake more, and it'd be good to keep that from happening. But if you've mounted on like a wooden wall or a thin barricade or something, people can shoot right through it. They don't need to hit your head and upper chest. They can just shoot through the cover they see you behind. So when you start taking fire, you need to actually move instead of just holding your position, mowing everybody down. If this was to go through, they should also make it so that high zoom optics, especially thermal optics, should lower your recoil. And the reason I say that is because high zoom optics usually go unused because they limit your versatility. Most players don't narrow their field of view for no reason, but this would actually give them one. And also, if every weapon is kicking and shaking more, nobody is going to want to slap a scope on top of their assault rifle. So because the scopes add aim down sight time, because the scopes narrow your field of view and limit your versatility, I believe that they should increase your accuracy, sort of making them essential for long-range automatic rifle combat. But of course heavily limiting you if they get up close. And you might think, well, I'll just use a canted hybrid, that's fine, but as soon as you swap to that red dot, I think you should have that full recoil again. That's my opinion. It's very video gamey, not super realistic, but I'd love to know what you guys think about this. I know a lot of you are probably like, okay, this dude's bogus, I'm unsubscribing, and trust me, this isn't something that I would lobby for. But as a thought experiment, as an idea, I'm curious to see how the game would play and how engagements would change. We'd see more mounted LMGs, DMRs, and ARs at a distance instead of getting melted by MP5s and assault rifles at those longer ranges, which is currently, unfortunately in my opinion, and my experiences, that's what we're seeing. Overly versatile god guns need to be a thing of the past, and I think buffing everything so that it works everywhere makes the game less fun. Because if everything's really powerful, everything's really boring. There's no point in choosing a specialized weapon, there's no point in customizing your loadout. But at the same time, unfortunately, Modern Warfare has some guns that don't really fill any role. Like, there's no reason to use an Uzi over an MP7, an S87 over a Holger, and in my opinion, an HDR over an AX50. Fight me. I'm going to start referring to the weapons like the M4 and the MP5 or the Kilo as dumb guns. Guns I'm not afraid to use, and I'm not ashamed to use, because they're so far ingrained into the meta of so many different FPS games. So, anyway, I've noticed Nemsk commenting on my videos saying, wow, didn't make it to the 10-minute mark, wow, you're a YouTube god or whatever. Unfortunately, I want this video to reach the 10-minute mark. I would like a mid-roll ad on this one, so go ahead and crucify me in the comments section. And while you're at the comments section, you're scrolling down, maybe check the description for my merch link and go buy a t-shirt that says Just Adapt on it, because that won't get you beat up at school. Either way, I'll see you when I see you guys. Goodbye.